kind of talk a little bit about kind of legislation. Now, there's a lot of legislation that goes into dealing with domestic violence, but one that Men's Voices Ireland has spoken out quite a bit about is the Istanbul Convention.
Right.
So, briefly, what is the Istanbul Convention and how has it affected how domestic violence is tackled?
Yeah. The Istanbul Convention is a classic example of how even supranational agencies have been taken over, if you like, by feminist ideology. The Istanbul Convention was brought out, ironically enough, by a human rights body, the Council of Europe, which covers, I think, 47 countries across Europe. And they brought out the Council of Europe. I think it was probably published around 2011. But it's completely founded on feminist ideology. And it expounds this feminist theory. It's called the gender paradigm, by the way.
Yeah.
That's the name which people in the US and Canada use for the gender paradigm. Here it might be called the patriarchal theory of domestic violence. But it just simply says that men use violence to control and to subjugate women. That's written into the Istanbul Convention, even in the preamble.
Yeah.
That men use as one of their primary means of controlling and subjugating women is by domestic violence, use of domestic violence. So that's what it encapsulates, and all the provisions of the domestic violence of the Istanbul Convention follow from that basic premise.
Yeah.
But the fact is, they all have been discredited. The gender paradigm has been completely overturned, refuted. It had been blasted out of the water. It's completely false. That's the finding. The history of the Istanbul Convention is interesting because insofar as I have been able to find out, there was no debate about it.
Yeah, I've actually asked a couple of friends of mine who are quite big into kind of social policies, some of them especially around gender. None of them had heard of it.
No. It was passed into law in this state in 2019. It went through the Oireachtas by stealth.
Yeah.
Like a thief in the night. There was no discussion of it. I don't think anybody even asked a question. I don't think any politician even raised a question or even dared to ask a question about it. They were all so scared, so terrified of saying anything that might offend.
That might challenge it.
Challenge the official ideology. That there was no debate about it within the Oireachtas. And at all. It sailed through in a day or so. There was no debate about it on media, mainstream media, neither on radio nor on television was there any debate about it. Neither was there any examination of it in the print media. Nobody was asked, no lawyer was asked to write an article about a major international convention and what its consequences down the road were likely to be.
Like, it's a major piece of legislation.
It's a major piece.
It was never talked about.
Never talked about.
It wasn't debated like that. I think that kind of is a great example of the state of our democracy here.
It is. It shows we don't have a democracy. In fact, I mean
to be fair,
it means that an international convention, a major international convention, that such a thing could be passed through in total silence and without any murmur from either politicians or media. That shows some kind of state of mind, and it's not favourable to democracy anyway. That's for sure. But as far as I can make out, Jeff, there was no debate about it in any country in which it was ratified. I have been able to find out whether a debate occurred in any European country in which it was ratified. By the way, it's worth noting that the UK hasn't ratified it.
Interesting.
And that is very likely a consequence of Brexit.
Brexit.
Yeah, it's tied up with Brexit. We're not going to be lectured here by an EU Commission who wants us to ratify this document, because the EU are in favour of this as well.
Yeah.
Council of Europe. But the But the British decided, no, we're not going to take.
Do you think that was partly one of the reasons why there wasn't so much discussion about it, because it was the EU that was really pushing its member states to kind of adopt it?
Yeah.
And we're kind of like, we all know about Micheál Martin and Leo being very happy yes men to the
that's right.
European
To
Union.
the EU Commission, yeah, they're very, very happy to say yes. Yeah, it could have been. To be honest with you, I don't know whether there was actually discussion about it in the UK or not. I'm not sure. But it's worth noting that there are still at least 7 countries which haven't ratified it out of the out of the total. At least 7 countries, and several of them are EU countries. For instance, the Czech Republic, Slovakia, Hungary, Lithuania and Latvia, they haven't ratified it.
Any idea as to why?
They're more sensible. they have more common sense than to ratify a nonsensical treaty.
Yeah.
Because not one politician would dare come out in public and defend that treaty on a public platform.
Yeah.
They wouldn't do it.
Because they'd be
destroyed.
They'd be annihilated.
They'd be destroyed. Yeah.